Ladies and gentlemen, the ANC appears to be at war with itself, not like the legacy media claims, nor in terms of factional battles, but rather at war with itself mentally, in terms of what it stands for. Former President Thabo Mbeki has penned a letter to the ANC Deputy President Paul Mashatile, asking why the ANC protected his president. This comes after the ANC voted against establishing an inquiry into Parliament into the Phala debacle and into corruption at Eskom. Mr. Mbeki said, and I quote, "I would assume that as ANC members, we would assume that our president would not do and has not done anything impeachable. Therefore, voting against an inquiry to prove he has done nothing wrong seems odd." And to that I would agree. He says, voting against the inquiry shows that the ANC knows he's done something impeachable, which is why they voted against the inquiry. This, he claims, was an act designed to protect the president at all costs. Mr. Mbeki further asked, what message are we communicating to the masses of our people about the values and integrity of the ANC? This all seems very odd, given that the deputy president has already answered this exact inquiry when he answered this very question made by the leader of the official opposition, John Steenhuisen, during parliamentary questions. Paul said, when the ANC believes it is correct, it will do as it pleases, because it has a majority in the House. He says, I think this is how democracy works. The majority must have its way. No, democracy works that way. Maybe when you have an opportunity to govern, you will understand. This is what you do in the Western Cape. And to this I agree, Paul is right. And this is exactly what the DA must do in the Western Cape. Govern without consent. If you feel you need to make an independent police force, do it. If you need to ditch Eskom, do it. And as Paul says, you have a majority, you must do what you feel is correct. Paul further says, and by the way, winning positions and decisions is something you win out there in elections. When you campaign, you win out there. You already win here. If you lose out there, you lose here. And here in the question that Thabo Mbeki is raising has been answered. The ANC voted against the inquiry into Phala because it understands that the debacle is hurting the ANC's image. And the longer that the people talk about the whole issue, their optics seem to get worse. Ramaphosa has already resigned once, and it is doubtful he enjoys the inquiry being protracted. It's highly likely that the ANC's attempt to bury the issue is also the ANC's hope that by stopping further inquiries, this will motivate the president to remain in office. Because the ANC understands, and the data proves, if Ramaphosa resigns, the ANC without Ramaphosa would face an overwhelming defeat at the next elections. This has not been done because of the rule of law or because of an ethical conundrum, but rather it has been done to save face and stop people discussing the issue further. Why then did the ANC vote against the inquiry into corruption at Eskom? You may wish to ask yourself, does the ANC believe that there is no corruption at Eskom? Well, no. The ANC knows that there is corruption at Eskom. The cabinet has discussed it at length many times. The problem is who within the ANC it is suggested is involved in corruption. The corruption isn't being caused by some local councillor. Instead, the allegations of corruptions go all the way to the top. An inquiry into the corruption would expose the leadership structures appointed by Ramaphosa and would cause the taps of the patronage network to be turned off. Instead, by voting against the inquiry, the accused go unexposed, which helps the ANC's optics, and the looting can continue just for that little bit longer. None of this should be news to Mr. Mbeki. After all, he's been an ANC member for some time, so he knows how the party works. He should know that it's party first and country second. None of this has been done for the benefit of the country and has only been done for the benefit of the party and those in charge of it. But what further confuses is the news this week that the president has decried the news that the ANC has shifted away from its key concept of non-racialism. Anybody who's had a look at Mr. Ramaphosa's cabinet will clearly note that the demographics that it purports to represent are made up of one key ethnic group, and it ain't the whites. This news comes after Ramaphosa looked to reshuffle his cabinet, but found no whiteys in sight to appoint. After all, the president is obsessed with being countering and does feel the need to have some form of representatives from minorities, but it doesn't have a need to appoint. It's confusing in itself, given that it was only a week ago that the ANC's chief whip commented on those, by implication, who found against the amendment of Section 25, the property rights clause of the Constitution, as being those who are enjoying our land. Statements such as these create the impression of them versus us, and this impasse does not foster mutual relations. This, coupled with the allegations made by the ANC's Minister of Employment and Labour, the government needs to adopt a more aggressive strategy to transform workplaces by booting whiteys from their position, leaves many wondering, how can the ANC pretend to want any form of political favour from the white demographics of South Africa. Is this really a principled position of wanting to be non-racial? And the answer to this, ladies and gentlemen, is no. The ANC is just thinking of ways to win the vote in 2024. These comments are not being made on ideological grounds, but rather on political ones. And herein is where the ANC's mental war can be found. There are those who think that the ANC is deeply ideological, and unfortunately it's not. The ANC remains an extraction mechanism, only interested in itself. Its desires are political only, and to that end the ANC appears to be confused when it appeals to ideology and finds itself coming up short time and time again against its own internal greed. Unfortunately, this is how all socialist bent parties seem to go. In this regard, the ANC is hardly unique. However, the confusion that the ANC finds itself in is